everyone! Welcome to the very first episode of She Inspired Me podcast series. My name is Christine Truong. I'm the founder of She Inspired Me, an online platform that was created to inspire and empower the women, especially for Millennial and Gen Z. And with me today is a very special guest. Her name is Miss Phuong. She is the founder of Women Leaders and engineer. Hi, chị Phuong.
Hello, em.
Welcome, chị Phuong, to the show today. So, can you tell us a little bit about your personal background?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to your podcast today. I feel very honored to be here and be happy to share my stories with the audience today. So my name is Phuong, and usually when I introduce my name, because it's not easy to say Phuong, and usually if you see the word, people would usually say Phuong. So I would say you would spell it like typhoon. So Phuong. Phuong, like typhoon.
Typhoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how I usually introduce my name.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. It's just a good way to help people pronounce it because it's not easy to actually pronounce. Currently, I'm working as a staff system engineer at Abbott Technical Lead at Abbott Laboratories in Irving, Texas. I came to the U.S. in 2010 as an international student from Vietnam.
So I'm curious, what's make you here to the U.S.?
So when I was studying in high school, I was in the English specialized class in high school. So I have some exposure to the American culture, and it's always interesting to me the concept of going around the world to a different strange country and being on your own and trying to grow that way. I'm always curious about what is there outside of Vietnam.
That's super cool.
And how I would grow as an international student in a strange country. So that concept actually is only very interesting to me. So I'm curious about that. From a very young age, I try to I do all the right thing, practice English and take English classes and take the test and apply to a lot of different schools in the U.S.
So how long have you been here in the U.S.?
So I've been in the U.S. So I came here in 2010.
Okay.
So I've been here in the U.S. for 12 years. So when I applied to different schools in the U.S., I got accepted in probably like 5 or 6 schools.
I believe there's so many different there because you were born and raised in a different country and then you come all the way here to the U.S. So I'm wondering, is there any other difficulties that you have to confront as an immigrant, as an international student?
Yeah, I think just like any other international student that come to the U.S., there is cultural shock that you have to overcome when you first came to the U.S. So being alone and being faced with cultural shock, don't have your family with you, all the very common difficulties that you are probably faced with too, and I'm also faced with that when I was in school. I think how you overcome that is to be able to find a good support system within yourself and find a good group of friends to surround you with.
I agree.
And always try to protect your peace and stay away from the negative vibes that are surrounding you, because being alone in a strange country is not easy to actually pick yourself up. So if you try to protect your peace and limit the chance of being beaten down by negative vibes, I think you should definitely try to do that. I think take the responsibility of your feeling and your emotions, protect it and be in control of it. Is one way that I learned how to navigate myself around as an international student when I was in school.
That's inspiring. There is one of my favorite quotes that I just heard it lately on Instagram, that if the flower doesn't bloom, are you going to plant the flowers or are you going to plant the environment? Which is also something that we really want to push ourselves out there with the challenges, with the right environment, that where we become, that where we feel like belong to, so that we can bloom in our way. And I believe that as an international student, we have a lot of inner motivation. We want to challenge the world. You know, like we want to conquer so many things out there. So that's so inspiring that you have been accomplished such a long journey with 12 years, with a lot of difficulties, obstacle barriers, with culture shock. And I know that it's hard. It's super hard. And is there any specific story that you want to tell the audience about a certain moment that you feel this is too hard on you, or this is too much on you, or either any awkward moment that you feel like this is so funny to think about whenever it comes to cultural shock?
Yeah, I think when I first came to the US, in the cafeteria, there's a lot of different food that I don't know what it is. So how I would order food would just to be pointing at it.
Right.
I want this, I want that, and not knowing what to call it. So I think that's pretty funny.
No,
and,
you know what? You're not alone. Even when I order the food, I don't understand what's going on. Even they ask us about almond milk or coconut or something like that.
You know what would I say? Like whenever that happens, I would just say, "Hey, I'll want the same thing with the."
I remember myself super nervous on the plane because they came over and they expected me to know what to order, but I couldn't understand what they like.
The accent is different.
Yeah, the two options that they gave me, I didn't understand it. The latter one, the second one, without knowing what I'm about to get. So just like bet it.
Guys, there's one fun fact that the English that we were taught in Vietnam is British English, but it's not like American English.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have one more question for you. So what was the journey that takes you to a women engineer at Abbott?
Yeah, that's a good question, because when I studied at TCU, I actually my degree was in biochemistry, Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry. So I finished my degree there at TCU, graduated as a biochemistry scientist, started finding jobs, worked as a food scientist at a community food bank for around 4 months, and then got a contractor position at Abbott as a reliability test scientist. So it still like has a scientist title in it. So I thought that I would actually be doing a lot of lab work and scientist work. But when I started working at Abbott, it turns out that the site that I'm working at is not making milk or things that people are familiar with Abbott, like Ensure, Similac. The site at Dallas actually is making a medical device, and I was forced to actually work with device and instrument and actually be very hands-on, and nothing about chemistry or biology, but more about instrumentation, troubleshooting, and like being on the instrument and fixing the instrument. And working there when I was a reliability tester, as a contractor, it wasn't an easy road because my contract was a second shift contract. So I actually worked from, I think, 2 p.m. to like 10 or 11 p.m. Sometimes if I work overtime, it would go to like midnight or 2 a.m. and I would go home, drive an hour long to go back to Fort Worth. But even though the timing and the work wasn't easy, I actually found out that I was very enjoying doing hands-on things and practical things. So being able to troubleshoot and actually fix what's going on with an instrument and actually see it working again, something about it was very challenging and was very interesting to me.
Agreed.
So started like that, keep learning until the point that the one thing about me that I realized when I came to the workforce is the curiosity in me. It seems like it never stops. It's always there. There's always a curiosity, wondering like what's going on, why is it like this? So I keep asking questions, and I don't mind asking questions because that's actually how you learn in an environment like Abbott.
I agree.
There's really no fixed training. There is training, but because things are very dynamic and it changes a lot, the best way you can learn is to ask questions and not be afraid of asking questions. So even though as an entry-level professional reliability tester, I ask a lot of questions, I learn more about the instruments, and I become familiarized with it, and I feel challenged, and I become kind of a more expert in the system itself.
You know, like we from a different background, And now we have to survive in America, and we have to try to adapt to the workplace. So there's a lot of difficulties.
Yeah, I think the experience makes me realize that I really like to do practical things, and I really like to work on the system and instruments. So that helped me channel my engineering spirit.
Super cool.
And the more that I work on the system, the more I realize that I like to also bring different disciplines together to actually solve a problem and get to the final point. So when I was working as a reliability tester, I got to work with the system a lot.
Yeah.
And then I got pushed by my boss to actually start working with the software engineer, with the hardware engineers, with the human factor engineer to figure out what the problem actually is and finding out what the root cause is. So being exposed to different discipline of the engineer, I realized that I like a little bit of everything. And because I now have the overview of what the system is, I can actually connect different pieces together to try to solve a problem. So, and I didn't even realize that this area actually exists before. But when I told my manager at that time that I liked doing that, apparently there's an area that's called system engineer. So what a system engineer is you actually act like the connection piece between different engineer discipline and translating what the customer wants into a requirement for different engineers to understand and be able to make a product out of those requirements. So you are the connection piece between different disciplines. You have to communicate what they want to the customer, what the customer wants to them, and also what the engineers want to the management team. So I just find myself completely appeal to that aspect of the job of being able to talk to different people and connecting pieces together, and also allow myself to still be in challenge every day by different problems and troubleshooting, and being able to talk to the customer and understand what they want about the product as well. So everything about that area was just such an appeal to me, and I started working more in it and even go back to school and take master degree in system engineer. And I've been following that path for the last 5 or 6 years at Abbott as a system engineer after my first few jobs, and I'm finishing my master degree right now in system engineering too. So just to show you guys that you don't really have to do what your degree in school was about.
Yeah.
It's a good step to prepare yourself of what is out there. It's shape your critical thinking, it prepare yourself with certain knowledge, but when you're out there in the workforce, sometimes you actually will run into something else that you will like.
But you don't expect it to happen.
That is still loosely related or related to what you would, because as an international student, you know that we have to work in your field to be able to get the visa, right? So
we have certain obstacles.
Yeah, we do have some limitations, but even within that limitation, there are still areas that you can explore that were not exactly what you did 100% in school. That is, might be what you actually like to do more in your career.
So with that background, being in another country and then come all the way here in the US, and then as an Asian leaders, how can you define yourself as a female engineer leaders at work? Because I believe that we all have different background, and the way that people lead others is totally different. It's based on your personality, it's also based on your perspective about leading as well. So how can you define yourself as a good leader at work? I'm so curious about that, because it seems like you have a really interesting story about your background. So the way that you inspire others are going to be different as well.
Yeah, sure. I think leadership is something that you learn over time as well. Somebody says that you are born a true leader and things like that. I don't think that is 100% true, right? You might want to be a leader, but developing your leadership skill takes time and experience.
Right.
So over the time that I'm at Abbott, I think at first, when I first started, I was very young and very ambitious, passionate, want to do everything, want things that my ideas are the best ideas. I want to be heard the most in the room. But as I started being involved in more projects and seeing different teams working and being through many projects, I realized that a leader is not the one to tell people what to do. Leader is actually the person who empowers people to do what they are good at and help them achieve what they want at their job. Only when they are motivated enough to do what they want to do, then the team can actually get to where we want to be. Nothing
amazing.
Yeah, nothing is good that will come out of being forced to do something.
Right.
Yeah. So I even at work right now, whenever I ask somebody to do something, I want to make sure they understand why we are doing it, the reason behind it, and make sure that they're on the same page. Even though it's tough, at least understanding the reasons behind it help them achieve what they want.
So either any other message or either any other perspective that you feel like it shift you, like the way how you lead others? Or either any different between your leadership and other leadership, and how can you define it differently?
Yeah, I think I want to make sure people understand that a leader doesn't have to be loud, the loudest person in the room, or the most talkative person in the room. There are different styles of leading, and a leader, like I was saying, is a person that brings people together and connect people together, make sure that they can work together to get to... A leader is not expected to be the one that solves the problem, but you have to know the good strength in each person and being able to bring that out and bring them together in the same room and help them work together. So I think it's important to understand that as a woman, you don't have to try to act like a man to be successful in any industry, especially for an engineering male-dominant industry. People tend to think that you have to take into account being like a man or acting like a man to be heard, but there are different ways that you can actually be heard and embrace the personality differences between women and men. As a woman, you have the advantages of being being a good listener. So you listen more and you take into account people's feelings more, and that can also play into your advantages as well as the leaders. You don't have to be like gung-ho or I'm like so strong and so loud. That doesn't shape what a good leader is. Good leaders can be a good listener and empathetic as well.
I agree. And when you talk about empathetic, about being a good listener, about how to feel other feelings, it kind of reminds me about there's a short-term class that I take with Yale University, and I were taught about women, about how women leadings, and then about emotional intelligence and how can we apply that to work. And I figured out that I totally agree with you about how to understand all the teammate strength and how to make them feel inspiring, how to make them feel like they love what they're doing, and how to inspire other working with them. So I totally agree with that. I think that's such a good perspective about being a good leaders. And I also totally agree that, you know, like as a woman, sometimes we don't have to be loud, but how can we define ourselves? How can we understand each other? We understand their need, and we have that kind of empathy and spread it out. We make their personality shine, but also make sure that the work is done. So I think
as a woman, if you don't feel comfortable raising your voice in a group setting, there's different way that you can actually be heard. You can always try to talk in a one-on-one setting with your peers, with your managers, or with your report if you have report.
It's more private and it's more sophisticated as well, because there are some people that they don't comfortable with being said what to do in front of so many people.
And I think to me the best way that I can manage to be a good leader is to be in those one-on-one settings, to learn about my peers, my report, and actually understand empathy with them and be on a personal level with them. You don't have to be best friend, but in the end, we're all just humans, right? If we understand more each other on a personal level, we can also work better together. And we spend most of our time a day actually working with each other.
I agree.
So we have to get to know each other on a personal level, or else everything would just it loses the meaning. You don't feel as connected to your friends and your coworkers. So getting to know each other on a personal level actually helps connect the team a lot, and helps us be more empathetic and forgiving in situations that needs forgiveness as well.
Thank you so much for the answer. I totally agree with that. Can't agree more. But then I'm currently heard a very popular term that called embrace diversity at work. So what do you think about that term?
D&I, diversity and inclusion, is a big what is that? A big push, a big trend for a lot of companies right now, right? Right. So I think diversity is important. I think any company needs to promote diversity and embrace different cultures, different race, different genders, and allowing to actually speak about it. And there's a thing that my company is very focused on right now that's called unconscious bias. Okay. So in the effort of promoting diversity and inclusion, because there are times when you are being biased, but you don't know that you're actually being biased. I agree. And say you assign this task to this person, which is a male engineer, and then this task to another person, which is a female engineer, and there's characteristic in the task that makes you feel like, oh, why did you not assign this to the other person? Is it because of the gender? So a lot of the time, because we grow up in a society that has assigned gender roles and assigned gender bias, we have that developed in our mind already. We just don't know that it exists there. Being able to consciously think about it and be aware of it, I think helps a lot in promoting diversity and preventing these biases or discriminations at workplace. So I think diversity and inclusion is important, but unconscious bias and being able to talk about it and be more aware of it is important as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. When it comes to diversity, it's make me think about having diverse perspective. If we have one person in the table, or we have 4 people are on the table, but they are from the same background, the same point of view. What about we have 4 different people from different perspective, from different standpoint? Then we bring more value to the table, more creativity, more open-minded, more outstanding ideas. And I think I'm so proud to be an Asian leaders, and I believe you too, because we can bring that kind of ourselves, and we put it out there in the very diverse culture at work, and we make an impact with that, and we also trying to balance between all the perspective, all the culture with our culture, which is such a great thing to watch.
I think every cultures, every diversity bring different things to the table, right? But I think being aware of some limitations that your culture brings to the table as well. So not wanting to sound very negative about it, but say I think for international students or immigrants, for me, at first, it's very hard for me to take compliment. I actually still don't know how to take compliment.
Wow, me too. Like, I think it's happened for most of the Asian, especially with us, with Vietnamese, we were taught to be humble, and we were taught to be like not to be overconfident.
Not overconfident. But I think it's important to know that. Don't let that bring you down, right? Right. Because at work, especially in a fast-growing or fast-paced industry like in America,
it's so competitive out there.
Competitive, yeah. If you don't ask for things, sometimes it won't happen. Right. And it's not to say that you have to change your personality to be aggressive, but just remind yourself that if you're not doing this, do you really want it or not? If you really want it, then nobody else is gonna ask for it except for you. Nobody is gonna just, oh, here is your salary increase, please take it. Yeah. You have to in addition to actually working hard, you have to ask for it, because if they can keep paying you at the same amount of money for the work that you're putting in, sometimes they would do that. There are companies that would be good about it, do that. But sometimes they would not consciously proactively giving you the raise that you need, you also have to ask for it. You also have to vouch for yourself as well. And honestly, it's not on the company, because the company is a big organization that has a lot of people in it. They cannot take care for every person. They're not your family, your parents. They don't. The goal is not to take care of every single one person. They will when you ask for it. So you also have to know how to ask for what you deserve, and also vouch for yourself. Like performance assessment. Don't be shy to say good things about yourself.
I believe
be
that
bold about
most of the Asian girls like us, we were taught to be gentle, to be like, to be humble. But then when we came to America, I still remember the feeling when I trying to get some first interview as a junior in my university, and then people asked me like, Christine, you need to talk more about yourself. But then I was like, that's overconfidence. But then after a lot of interview, I realized that you have to sell yourself. Like you have to telling people about you, and you have to learn how to comfortable with that, because it's very competitive. It's so fast growing out there. If you don't go beyond, if you don't challenge yourself, if you don't speak up, who want to speak up for you?
Right? And I'm not saying that you have to be loud about it.
It's not loud, but
there's a way that you can ask for things, or vouch for yourself in your own way, in your sort of way. But just know that you have to be the one that look out for yourself.
Oh my God, whenever it comes to women leading, there's so much more that I want to talk about. But then I believe that your perspective was formed because of our women characters, which is sophisticated, which is sensitive, and we acknowledge about what's going on around us, and we acknowledge about our feelings, which is, I think, is so influential, and it's also really important because for our good leaders, not only for get things done, but also about dedication and about compassionate work as well.
Is there any fun moment, or is there any awkward moment, or any aha moment that make you feel like, why is so much different between female leaders and male leaders?
Sorry. There are a few stories here and there. So I think in my old previous company, there were a lot of times where there would be male and female in the room, and we would talk, and the conversation became very long, and the meeting lasts long. We couldn't come to a decision, and it's very interesting that this is a previous company, right? So it's very interesting that the next time when they actually have another meeting to talk about what to do and to come to a decision, they only have a meeting within the men leaders.
Wow,
because,
interesting.
And just in passing by, just talking, it just seems like because they don't want to, they don't want the group to overthink, and they want to simplify the conversation and come to the decision faster. So that was kind of a wake-up call to me, that even that we are in the US, there are also a lot of scenarios when, like back to the unconscious bias thing, where there are a lot of scenarios where things are done in a way that do not really empower women and women leaders. So that was not funny, but that was a sad story that I actually had to observe one time. And another one is being in a male-dominant industry, especially if you're female and you're international. It's hard to be heard at first, and I feel like for women, it takes a bit longer for you to actually prove yourself.
Right.
And there were times when I was young, and I'm still young, but there were times when I was younger, it was super hard to actually make people, I guess, understand that what I'm saying is actually correct, because I actually have data and facts. But for when I said it, they would not believe me at first right away. But to be able to have people believe it, you have to provide like 2x times of fact and data for them to actually believe it. But I don't let that bring me down. I acknowledge it, even though as sad as it is. I usually try to confront with people whenever they actually have doubts about me. I was like, trying to ask them, why would you think that I was not right, and what do you think I can do better next time, and trying to like pulling out of them, make them aware that they might be biased, and confront them with that, and that really actually helps a lot in defining my position at work and hold my ground.
It's also happened to me, and I believe that it's not only for us, but also another women out there, especially we are minorities, we're Asian, and we came from another country as well. So I still remember there's some position that I'm take the lead, but then I have another lead, like I'm the first leader, and then there's a second leaders that's supporting me. And then I remember there's a few times that in the leading, of the leader meetings, the higher people who is our advisor, they don't really listen to what I say. But even I'm a leader, but they didn't listen to what I say because I'm not loud enough, because my English is having the accent, or because I don't know. I just feel like they don't. You can sense that, you know, like the eye contact, the other stuff as well. And I remember there's some other leading that I represent for my own organization, but then we have two leaders, and I'm the bigger one. And then I remember they contact the male one. They contact the one who was born and raised here, and then they didn't contact me. So I feel a little bit sad about that as well. But then after I'm reading and researching, I realized that it's like non-bias.
Unconscious bias.
Conscious bias.
And I think even though it's hard, those still exist nowadays, right?
Right, it still exists nowadays, and you can't change it. But the problem is, how can we live with it, right?
No, I think that's, you can change it. I think step by step, small steps. So whoever that did that to you, even though it's hard, you can actually try to confront them.
Right.
And ask them, is there a reason why you did not contact me? And maybe be more subtle about it. Okay, can you please contact me next time when there's a question about this or that, or about this organization, because I'm working on it a lot and actually very familiar with the details, so I would be appreciative next time you would contact me. So call them out for those behaviors, and don't just live with it. I think small step by small step, we might be able to change it eventually. I think where we are right now is already much better than where we were maybe 10 years ago. So step by step, proactive about it, calling people out, and make sure that they are aware of that. And if they still refuse to be aware of it, then that's their fault. We try to actually...
Yeah, I think one of the problem with me is also about being confident with what I concerning about, because I was like, I think that is, I have to prove them about my result. Like, I want to prove them that I did a great job and I can achieve this, and I was worth it and I deserve it. But so now they change their perspective about me. They show more respect about me, and I sense that. But I know that it takes us longer compared to the male one to really prove about who we are and how much we can do the work, which is pretty interesting. And now, after sharing about your thoughts, and I realized that I'm not alone. So probably other women out there, they're not alone as well. They definitely have to confront with that.
Thank you so much for everyone for watching our podcast today. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up for this video, comment, and share below. We're looking forward to see you all for the next episode. Bye!